G'day viewers, today we're going to have a look at the newly released Sherman Hill for Train Sim World 2 from Dovetail Games. These are my first thoughts and a review, having had a bit of playtime in it. So, the route revolves around two locomotives principally, the SD42 in Union Pacific livery, and there are a couple of variations of that. The Cane Creek one is subbing in, if you really like it. I don't. Then there's the proper one, which is the brand new SD42 developed by Dovetail. There are two versions of it, the SD40-2 UP and the UP SD40-2. The only difference is the horn recording. These horns have come from genuine horns, recorded properly for the game, and they are awesome. I'm really liking the SD42. Not to be forgotten is the SD70 ACE, another new locomotive to the game. The sounds on this one aren't quite genuine, but they're pretty good, and I think unless you're an absolute nitpicker, you're actually going to be quite happy with them. Again, this one's got brand new horns recorded from the real thing, and again there are two versions of the locomotive with each of the different horns. Okay. Alright, now let's take a look at the scenarios that come with the route. There are 6. Something old, something new, which you take one contest out and come back with another one. Reasonably challenging and reasonably quick. There is Switcheroo, which is basically the yard switching duties at Cheyenne Yard. Cheyenne Yard is massive and there's a bit to do, so it'll take a while. And a word of caution. A red sign on a stick is a red signal, just so you know. I might have found that out the hard way a couple of times. Get over it. You leave your train in a siding, rip up the hill, and help bring another train down that's struggling a little bit, and then jump back onto your train and go on from there. Quite a bit of fun. Takes a little while. It's a full hour, this one. And we've got Building Up, where you're helping out at the cement works. Now this is quite similar to some of the services, because there are services that do this too, and taking cars to and from the cement works at Laramie. And finally we've got Magnet for Trouble. Now I'm not going to give you any spoilers on this one, but you know, you can see the text there. Reports have come in that valuable cargo might have caught the attention of some local gangs, so keep a keen eye out. It's a lot of fun. It takes quite a while, as you can see, it's 100 minutes. I reckon you'll enjoy it, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers whatsoever. You just have to go and do it. It's well worth your time, though. Definitely worth 100 minutes. And the final one is Sandbox Switching, where you're playing around in Cheyenne Yard, and you can do pretty much whatever you want, moving whatever you want to wherever you want, with whatever locomotives you want. There's a turntable to play with, there's a bunch of other things. There's a tower you can climb up if you're really excited about it. Just don't leave the yard, because if you leave the yard, that'll be game over, folks, because you'll get a spad. Now, to finish it, you just wander over to the office. Alright then, now let's take a quick look at the services available for the SD42 locomotive. There are only 11 of them, and they're all around about the 30-minute mark, apart from a couple of shorter ones. So there's switching around Cheyenne, there's switching around a chemical plant, Laramie Yard to Laramie Cement. This is an interesting one, this one actually, because it's a propelling manoeuvre where you push your train from the head end down towards the cement plant and do some shunting. Bit more chemical switching, some oil switching, and various others. Bit of fun to have throughout each day. Okay, let's have a look at the services for the SD70 ACE now. There's rather a lot. So out of the 101 services available, 11 of them for the SD40, which means that the rest of them, 90, are available for the SD70 ACE. We've got lots of full route runs from Cheyenne to Laramie and back again with various different things. We've got Hermosa, which is the middle point near the tunnels, up to Laramie. Another full run. There's the Granite Quarry. This one's a bit of fun, which goes into Laramie. There's a few other variations around the place that you get to play. They're all quite interesting, and for the most part, they're pretty long. But there is a sprinkling of shorter ones, so most of them run to about the 1 hour mark. There's a few up around the 1.5 hour mark, and there's quite a few around 30 minutes. So if you just want to have a quick play, you can. So there's a bit of variation for everybody. I quite like this because I think that if you like a long freight run, I personally don't really. I kind of a little bit boring. But if you like a long freight run, it's there. If you like a short freight run, well, guess what? You've got them too, so you can play those to your heart's content. There's a good amount of gameplay in this one. I think well worth what you're paying for the route. Right, welcome aboard the SD70 ACE. I'll show you around in a moment, but we've got a bit of work to do because, as you can see, our brake pipe is at 0 for the whole train. So let's just get things started. Let's get the reverser in. And let's get, we're set in trail at the moment, so let's get into operator controls, air brake lead, air brake cut in, and we will let those start to do their thing after we release the handle. So that should start climbing now. It is fantastic. Let's turn on our banking comm, although on this train I think we need it. Our dynamics are running. I think the engine's running, well, it's a little bit hard to tell on this train under the sound of the rain because the cab's quite quiet. Let's put our headlights on and I'll leave the gen field off for the moment. What I'm going to do is crank up to notch 1 just to help the compressor run a bit. No idea if this really does anything in the game or not, but in reality this is what you would do. Now you can see the equalising reservoir is coming up to 81 now. The brake pipe in this end of the train is now up to 42 pounds. In the rear we're only up to 4, so we've got rather a long way to go before we can release. And we can see most of the rest of our train go in. We have got CSS, which is the cab signalling system, is cut out, and ATC is cut out as well. And we don't have our alerter turned on at the moment. I will do that before we start to drive. Now the cab signalling system is a little bit weird, excuse me. And it's kind of working, kind of not. So, turn it on, have a play, see what you think. Going outside the locomotive, they look pretty nice. I think they've done a pretty nice job on these things. Weathering's nice. The general appearance of them's quite nice. There's a lot of new cars that come along with this route as well, or freight vehicles, whatever you want to call them. I call them cars. Modelling wise, the brake cylinders and brake shoes do actually move. You'll see that. The end bearing caps move. The braking piston up here moves. So I think most people will appreciate that sort of thing. Let's go and check and see how our pressure's going at the moment. Okay, we're at pretty good pressure in the front now. So our brakes would be coming off in the front by now. So I'm actually going to pop my independent brake on now. Should have done that before, really. So, still climbing up, and you can see our brake cylinder is sitting on 72. That's because I put the independent brake on. The flow indicator is not working as yet. Hopefully that'll get fixed in a future release. But there are some important things to think about. Let's just get a bit further from the train for this. Yes, I do. That is a pretty decent horn. Dovetail tell us that they found someone with the genuine Nathans and recorded it with them, and it certainly sounds like it because it's a new one and it's brilliant. I really like it. The two different variations of the horn are quite subtly different. You can pick them if you've blown them enough. So, pretty cool. The bell on this locomotive is a traditional mechanical strike bell. You can hear it. I've seen a few people posting on the forums and the like, and saying it on the streams as well, that this should be an e-bell. I'm doing my own research. There were some that had e-bells and some that had mechanical bells, so you're both right. Pick one. So coming back into the cab now, we're almost ready to rock and roll. Our rear pressure is up to 63. I have noticed on a couple of occasions that my rear pressure wasn't actually showing in the loco, so I can show you a trick. If you go down the back of the train and have a look in the cab of the rear locomotive, the other side. Pop down here, pop the window open, oops, sliding along. You can see your pressure here is 67, 68, so we're almost ready to go. So if you can't get pressure on the front, just pop down the back. Get that black screen because this train is a mile long, so it's a couple of tiles away, which means it has to load them. Now, I don't know if you were watching, but it wasn't actually snowing before, so I certainly selected snow for this one, and I selected that it should be falling. You know what that means? We've got some dynamic weather happening. So it works within your parameters, but it's not always snowing, which is pretty cool. Okay, so we are up to 73 on the back. I reckon it's time to start getting ready. Now, something I do want to show you, there's a little bit of a bug if you use the rail driver, because you've got the same single lever, the throttle, controlling the power throttle and the dynamic brake. So if you try and move your reverser, you can't, because there's not quite enough of a gap between each of these. But the workaround is to just put it in wherever you want and jiggle the lever till it goes, and it'll work fine. So let's turn our gen field on so we can actually power up. And it's a very quiet cab, got to say that, it's a comfort cab. But you can get some sound if you want by opening the windows or opening the doors. It gets louder each time you open a window, which is cool. Alright, so now we're ready to go. Brakes should be releasing on the back, so we will slowly release our independent brake. And we'll come up to about notch 3, and that should get us moving hopefully without slipping. Go. There's a little slip going on there in the snow. Let's pop back in and set some sand. I'm not sure if I turned on the banking light. No, I did. We have definitely got some wheel slip, but the end of our train is moving, so I'll just notch back a little bit. Just let our train catch up. You can see the cab signalling bug there. We're not getting any display now that we've gone through that first signal. We're also not seeing a motion indicator on the ATC. So hopefully, now that we've reached 5 miles an hour, let's try and crack this up again. Now I have to say, with this release, I reckon they've earned the word simulator, because this loco behaves quite nicely. So does the SD40. The brakes are realistic. It takes quite a long time to pump up, a good 10 minutes, which is probably quicker than prototypical, but it's probably about as long as you'd ever want to wait in a game. Bell is still going, killed it off there. We're now cruising along happily. Now, one other thing that I've noticed, if we pop back into the cab, I think your viewing height's too high, because your eye line is looking straight into the area where snow or rain would be. So when it's clear, it's fine, but otherwise it's not that much good. And you're trying to look out the bottom half, which means you can't really see the signals in any kind of poor weather like this. But as for that, I reckon locos go, these are pretty good. I'm quite enjoying them. As I said in the intro before, the sound isn't quite realistic. It's been modified from another locomotive. But I actually think it sounds pretty good, and comparing it to the sounds you hear on these trains on YouTube, that's pretty bloody close. The horn makes up for it. The horn's excellent. Really enjoyable. There are a few areas in the route where you may have some frame rate issues. So I run a 3070 card. I have a pretty good CPU, so a nice modern i9, and I I'm running at 2K with 150% screen resolution and everything cranked up with no INI settings, so I don't have any of those strange artifacts. But there are places in the route where I'm getting down to 15 frames a second. They're not everywhere, so at the moment I think it's actually pretty good. So we're sitting on nearly 30 at the moment. There are places where you'll quite happily hit 60. It is definitely lower than the others, and I mostly put it down to the amount of grass that's around the place, to be honest, because all this foliage is getting drawn. Now, on Matt's launch stream this morning, they did suggest a workaround. So if you come into settings and come into screen, whoops, sorry, was screen settings or advanced settings? Advanced settings, here we are. Foliage quality, if you drop that back down a bit, apparently that helps. Now, I haven't actually tried this yet, but let's see how we go. Oh, it does. Look at that. We're up to 37 frames per second there. Now, these trains are long, so I'm just going to stop here and I'm going to let this one go because they're huge. The hub. Rather a lot of these. So if you're playing on PC or a Gen 9 console, the majority of your trains are in the vicinity of 100 cars. If you're on an older console, unfortunately you're limited to somewhere around 40, I think it is from memory. Update your hardware. Alright, so we're leaving Laramie now. I quite enjoy this route in the snow. I also find this actually helps with the frame rate quite a bit too, because the snow damps down what it has to draw, which is kind of cool. But I think that's enough of the SD70 ACE, so I'm going to jump into another service and show you the SD40. Okay, to show you the SD40, I'm going to run the scenario build up. So, if you're playing the game and you want to tell which of the SD40s you've got, because the Cane Creek one is subbing in here, which I personally don't like it, but that's okay. If you've got an airflow indicator when you're on the inside, you're definitely in the Dovetail SD40. The other way to tell is on the outside. You've got the red stripe when you're in the Dovetail one. If you've got the yellow stripe, you're in the Cane Creek one. So we're going to do what we have been told, which is to set our reverser forward. So we are playing a scenario I'll get told what to do all the time, but that's okay. This is quite an interesting move because we're actually propelling to the Laramie Cement Siding 3. So we've got our two locomotives, we're driving in the lead one, pushing on our train, which is kind of cool. And I'm just going to pop into the map because I just want to make sure that everything is actually set for us to escape from the yard. Just following the blue path. And you can see here there's a set of points that is not. So everything in this yard is pretty much manual. So you've got to take care of these things yourself. There's another set that's not. And then we get down to the automatic section and we will be fine from here. Okay. Hopefully the brakes have charged up on the train now. And let's go. yard, but let's hear what Not Jake sounds like. Way down before we derail it. That would be slightly embarrassing. Through a yellow signal up there, I believe. Let's go for the fly and watch this thing. Particularly like the way the horn just tapers off at the end. And how it carries. Is this the first one that properly carries? Gotta like that. Better go catch up with our train, eh? Just down here is the cement plant we're going to, so while the train's cruising down, let's pop down here and have a look around. We've got the town of Laramie off to our left there. I've driven through this area. Signal doesn't apply to us. We've got some nice reflective water. We have got lots of leftover track on this route where they've ripped things up and not bothered to do the whole job. And that is prototypical. If you have a look on Google Maps and their aerial photography, it really is like that. So this is the cement plant. We've already got some carriages in here by the looks of things. So there's limited moves of what we can do. How far away is our train? Fair while yet. That's good. Alright, so I can just see it's just popped in the distance there. So let's just have a look at the map. Let's just zoom out so I can get down to the plant quickly. Now we're supposed to put it in there. Okay, so let's just check all our points out so we know they're set before we get here. That one's right, that one's fine. And that one is also fine. Okay. So we're propelling into a siding. We're going rather quick, so slow that beastie down shortly. Now, I checked with an American railway guy I know, and apparently this is actually quite prototypical. Where they would actually do propelling, or as they call them, shoving moves into the plant. Stop that a little bit early. Can hear the train spooling up at the other end, and off we go. Brakes haven't completely come off yet. A little bit of strange texturing happening occasionally. There we have it, Sherman Hill. Would I buy it? Absolutely. Is it fun? Definitely. Is it the most prototypical one they've produced yet? I reckon so. Now, I haven't taken you out on a long freight run, because you will see a lot of grass, and some rocks, and some telephone poles, and some more grass. So I'll leave you to do that on your own. If really long freight runs are your thing, then go for your life. As I said before, there are plenty of short runs to keep you busy. I really do think they've earned the word simulator in this one. The brakes are absolutely fantastic. They react slowly, they apply slowly, and they release slowly. Pretty much as it should be. So I am very, very happy with this one. Great work, Dovetail. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you've got any questions, please let me know in the chat. I stream once a week on Sunday mornings, my time. I start at 8:30 AM Australian Eastern Daylight Time at this time of year. And hopefully I will see you then. If you've got any questions about Sherman Hill this week, I will be streaming Sherman Hill. So see you then. Bye now. I welcome any and all feedback. Feel free to comment on the video. Constructive criticism is welcome, especially if I've got something wrong. I stream every Sunday morning starting at 8:30 AM, and I also do ad hoc streams from time to time during the week. Please subscribe and click notify to avoid missing out. Subscribing helps me by helping me see what content is good and how it helps the channel grow, or doesn't as the case may be.